Hey guys, Ravo here. Welcome to a special video, actually. Yes, I know it's Hearthstone up, but that's not what I'm talking about today. The Hearthstone game's just gonna be on in the background. I watch other channels on YouTube, obviously. The media is interesting. One of the channels I watch is Game Theory, and it's Film Theory by Matt. I watch more of the Game Theory than the Film Theory, and I can't say I've watched every episode of either, because I haven't. But I've watched a few. A lot. And a very recent Film Theory episode got me thinking. And got me thinking about there are errors here. There are inaccuracies here that need to be corrected, need to be stated. The point of the video was don't trust one single source. That was the core of the message. If somebody's trying to tell you the facts, think. Think outside them. A couple days ago, we posted a video on whether or not the Federation was fascist. And his claim was that it was. His key points were about the mission statement, the control over transportation, control over communication, control over economy, and then about the ideology therein. And his claim was that those points showed the Federation as fascist. I'm here to counter that. Let's preface this, though, by truly defining deeply fascism. I'm actually going to look up a true definition of it now. So, but that's the big key is, what is fascism? Because that's a pretty important part of this conversation. Definition from Merriam-Webster is, quote, a way of organizing a society in which a government ruled by a dictator controls the lives of the people and in which people are not allowed to disagree with the government. It's a relatively broad spectrum definition of anything, really. It's not broad spectrum, actually, correction, it's really narrow definition. Alternate definition is very harsh control or authority. That'd be for your non-governmental definition. Okay. So that is how we must judge that word. He used it differently. He found a different definition. He didn't force his definition in the media, in the research, but he defined it as simply where a government takes control over transportation, communication, and economy. I find that interesting, that he intentionally, and yes, that's intentional, not giving a full definition is something that happened. By the way, huge mistake there by me playing Hearthstone. I should have used Holy Smite first before throwing Thanos in. It would have saved me a Holy Smite, but I'm digressing. Fascism is more than just what he described it as. And I'm using, again, Merriam-Webster as my source. Pretty reliable source for definitions. And that source requires, one, dictatorial rule. Requires it. And two, control of the lives. Not just puppeteering. So, even with that, I can broad spectrum through different definitions show an issue with this point. go deeper than that. I'm going to show how even his individual points aren't inherently correct. So let's start at the basics. What did Star Trek show us? His description of what Star Trek showed us was the Federation's point of view. In the vagaries, that's true. But when you dig deeper, it's not. They're not just showing us Federation's point of view. They're showing a point of view of Starfleet. A comparable statement would be if we watched a military documentary and somebody said that documentary shows the U.S. point of view. Yes, technically, but not really. It shows a strata of that. Starfleet is a subset of the Federation. It is not the entirety of the Federation. I'm exactly where I say that. Starfleet is an arm of the Federation. Similarly to how the U.S. Navy is an arm of the United States of America. Starfleet is used for exploration and for defense. And this is my source for Star Trek related information is Memory Alpha. It is a Star Trek wiki. And before we doubt the usage of wikis as source material, let's remember his big place where he found most of his sourcing from, where he saw the list of Star Trek ships, looked very much like Wikipedia. And I'm specifying what Starfleet is to show what Starfleet isn't. Starfleet is not the entirety of the Federation. It is most definitely a part of the Federation. It is a similar part to the Federation as I said, the U.S. Navy is to the United States. Or the U.S. Armed... No, Navy. He's got the Makos still. The U.S. Navy is to the United States. A subset of the whole. Meaning, you can't say Star Trek showing the Federation point of view. It's really not. It's showing the Starfleet point of view. And while there are a lot of places where those 2 points of view coincide, there are also places where they differ. I doubt many civilians in the Federation, looking at DS9, that's the show I've watched the most. Well, no, Enterprises. But DS9 is one I've watched most recently. I doubt many civilians in the Federation knew what was going on in detail when Leighton, I think was his name, was trying to take control of Earth, using a changeling attack as his motivation, as his means to advance, as his reasoning. I don't think many civilians in the Federation knew about that. Knew anything about that. Not just knew some, knew anything. They were probably not told. For, honestly, relatively obvious reasons. However, we were given a good bit of information about it. But there's the difference. Keeping that in mind, let's dig into his arguments. His first argument is about the mission statement being, if nothing else, manipulative. That there has not been benevolent exploration in the past. Yes, he's right. Nobody has just explored for purely benevolent reasons. That's true. I will cede that individual point. But I will argue it's not relevant. He gave certain examples of groups that explored for alternate reasons. British Empire, Christopher Columbus. you describe those groups as fascist? I wouldn't. They weren't dictatorially ruled. The British government in the Imperial Age was ruled, the beginnings of it by the monarch overall, after that by a principle where basically the monarch was in charge as a figurehead with the power of parliament. That was the Magna Carta. I forget the exact year, but it's not relevant. That's not fascist. That's not one single dictator. But yet it is exploration for non-benevolent means, for resources or for people. It meets his definition of the word. It meets his view of exploration, but doesn't show fascism. So that argument is false. It does not prove his point. What I'm saying doesn't disprove his point. I'm saying his point itself is not inherently incorrect. However, what he said there does not, on its own, prove his point. We must look deeper. Next, so we look at his three individual definitions of fascism. Start with transportation. He talks about how there are no civilian ships. To get a ship, you need to use the Federation. He claims he's watched a lot of Star Trek. Did he? He may have just skipped these episodes, but I'm not trying to denounce him on that. But in Deep Space Nine, there was a ship called the Xosa, Xosa. I'm not going to try to. I botched that pronunciation, but I don't care. It was the ship owned by Cassidy Yates. By the way, spoilers for Deep Space Nine, but if. Let's be honest, spoilers for Deep Space Nine, a 20-year-old show at this point, has no meaning. If I'm spoiling it for you, then I'm sorry, but I have to discuss this stuff. The Xosa, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it, was a civilian ship. Cassidy Yates was not a member of the Federation. She was not a member of Starfleet. She was a civilian of the Federation. She was not a member of Starfleet. And yes, you have to differentiate the two. Because a lot of his other arguments actually are arguments about about Starfleet, not the Federation. There's also some other ships from other examples. There's one that happened in the original series, the Aurora. There's a few others that I'm not going to dig into because I don't know them that well. The Xosa is the best example. Another example, if we want to go back into Enterprise, which I'm shaky to do because it's pre-Federation, is the Horizon. Again, now spoilers for Enterprise. The helmsman Travis Mayweather, his family ship. Go to communications. Is the next point. Again, his argument on are there non-Starfleet communicators? There might be. We don't know. We haven't seen them, and he's right that we haven't seen them. That doesn't mean they don't exist. He keeps arguing that we haven't seen these things, therefore they must not exist. No, we haven't seen them because we haven't looked into Federation civilian life. We've looked into Starfleet life. And in Starfleet, you don't need a non-Starfleet communicator. You have the Starfleet one. And then he discusses the Enterprise D, where you can see where people are through the badge. Again, that's a Starfleet thing, not a Federation thing. Those are different and need to be treated differently. The Federation, as I've said, I'm going to continue saying, is an arm of Starfleet. It is not the entirety of Starfleet. Okay, so now that I've discussed that point, there's a few other things that need to be discussed real quick. Starting with the exile of Kirk. The exile of Kirk by Spock during the new Star Trek movie. I'm sorry, there's going to be spoilers for pretty much everything Star Trek in this discussion. That exile would actually be relatively viable if you, I think you might have to stretch current U.S. doctrine, but unilateral discipline by a captain is in current U.S. military doctrine. It's a procedure called captain's mast, where the commander of a vessel, if they're out at sea, has that kind of authority to unilaterally make disciplinary policies. Well, my opponent just left, so I think I'm going to get into another game, but a little bit more I need to talk about. So Spock's decision to exile Kirk, while a little bit of a stretch by U.S. captain's mast policies, is most definitely an option under captain's mast policies. However, and that's actually U.S. Navy policy, you can look it up. Let me go to Admiral Marcus. And one of my big points of argument will be, this has occurred in the U.S. The U.S. is not fascist. We can all agree, the U.S. is not fascist. We can disagree about the political structure of the U.S. currently, and people will. Please don't do it in my comments section. I'm not discussing the U.S. political structure. I'm discussing, we can all agree, the U.S. is not fascist. However, there's been corruption in the U.S. Just recently, a flag admiral, actually a rear or a vice admiral, pled guilty to corruption. It wasn't to overthrow the government, although that also happened in the 30s, but it was different. It was over prostitutes, mainly. But corruption has happened in the U.S. U.S. military. U.S. military fascist? Is the U.S. fascist? No. Section 31 is the next argument. Delves inside of Admiral Marx, but deserves its own section. Section 31 is a Black Ops wing. That's how he described it. It is Federation Black Ops. The U.S. has Black Ops missions. About a decade back, the U.S. released large quantities of Cold War era Black Ops missions. Is the U.S. fascist? No. Therefore, the presence of Black Ops missions and Black Ops wings, for example, for clarity, the U.S. Black Ops would fall under FBI or CIA, depending. The presence of Black Ops missions does not make a government fascist. Next up, currency. He claims that currency is not used within the Federation. He uses a quote from Picard from First Contact. But in the past, he was also using source material from the original series, so I must also be allowed to use original series evidence. Let's look to the Trouble with Tribbles. An episode in the original series. We're not looking at the DS9 look-in of it, because this scene wasn't in the look-in. Space Station 10-7 is a Federation deep space station. It's not even Starfleet, it's Federation. So it has civilian populations and military populations. A bartender tried to sell a Tribble to Uhura. We all know who Uhura is. At least any of us who watch Star Trek. For those who don't, communications officer on the original Enterprise. In the original series Enterprise. For 10 credits. So we had, I'm going to clarify this, a bartender on a Federation space station using credits as a means of currency for a Federation officer. That's inside the Federation currency use. It might not be used for everything. There might be a lot of on-account, on-barter systems. But credits are still used. Then we discussed people going rogue. Again, Admiral Marcus. I counter with Edward Snowden. People can debate whether Edward Snowden is a hero or a villain. I'm not going to. Let's not do it in the comments. But he did defect from the U.S., not from the military, but from a civilian wing, and leaked classified information. Does that make the U.S. fascist? Then we have the ideology argument. He argued the bundle of sticks, which was used as a fascist symbol. And yes, I'm not going to deny the etymology of the word fascism. But I'm going to argue that bundle of sticks analogy has been used in a lot of other places too. Another YouTube channel I watch called Extra Credits. I watch both their video game stuff and their extra history stuff. It's actually really good. I would recommend, if you have any interest in video games, at least watch certain episodes. There will be episodes that pique your interest. And if you have interest in history, watch their extra history series. It's very interesting. The bundle of sticks, in this case it was arrows, but same concept, was used by a group of people who, in their tongue, were the Haudenosaunee. I just botched that pronunciation horrifically. We know them as the Iroquois Confederacy. A collaboration of, at the time, 5, later 6 native tribes into one loose confederacy of peace within. That symbol is also on, you see the eagle in the U.S., I think it is on currency, on a lot of U.S. symbols. In one hand you have pine leaf, one claw. In the other claw you have a bundle of arrows, 13 arrows. A bundle of 13 arrows, signifying the 13 original colonies united together. One can break, 13 will not. The U.S. fascist? Or the Iroquois fascist? No. Next up is his comparative of Crawl to Kirk. I'm going to start with, again, reiterating, Kirk was a captain's mass decision. That was not a decision specifically by Starfleet. That was a decision by one captain that he had the authority to make, but was not inherently done by the Federation. Now to Crawl. Let's preface with, why are we trusting a source at face value? Somebody who's trying to tell us the facts? Isn't that what you told us not to do? Let's start there. Crawl said this. We're supposed to agree at face value that Starfleet abandoned Crawl. We have one source, Crawl, who's a biased source. Everybody's biased. There are biases everywhere. I'm biased a little bit. I like Starfleet, I like Star Trek, I like the Federation, so I'm going to offer a defense. He's biased. He's created a topic for the video and is making points to support his topic. That's a bias. Everyone is biased. It's a sad fact. So we have to look at that. The last thing is conflicts involving Earth, how we only see one side of it. Yes, that is true. That doesn't make the Federation fascist. Many governments have hidden details about conflicts. In World War II, how much do we discuss internment camps? How much do we discuss the destruction of Dresden, other than just that it happened? How much do we go into detail of the firebombing of Tokyo? Are we fascist? Hell, that whole war was fought to fight fascism. So, again, that argument doesn't hold water. True, there might be details hidden. Maybe the Federation declared war on somebody when they claim they haven't. But that alone doesn't signify fascism. That signifies victors writing history, which happens. Whether it should or not, it happens. So, to wrap this all up in a neat little bow, just because somebody has hidden details might have a few odd statements, has a guy go rogue from their government, has their military acting strictly, doesn't make them fascist. I go back to Merriam-Webster definition. Fascism is a way of organizing a country, or a society, it doesn't have to be a country, in which a government ruled by a dictator controls the lives of the people, and in which people are not allowed to disagree with the government. There's another saying: extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. So what I must ask is, those of you who agree with him, prove to me that that is the case. That the Federation, not Starfleet, they are different, is organizing society, is a society organized in a way such that a government, that it is ruled by a dictator, that the Federation president, who has been seen as dictatorial power, that dictator controls the lives of the people, and in which people, civilians, not just the military, are not allowed to disagree with the government. You're not going to be able to. And I'm trying to avoid bringing in the books, because the books are a different level of canon. I can, and if somebody wants to bring in the books, that's fine. We can discuss how the Federation government works in the Fall series. In the Fall series, where there's a lot of checks and balances on the president, even when the president is a total tool trying to ignore all of them. But let's make one last Deep Space Nine example to smash this definition. Sisko's father. I never remember his name. The two-parter where he's on Earth. He disagrees with the government on a great many things involving blood screenings. They force him to cooperate with blood screenings. He's not arrested. He's not exiled. He's not executed. He shares a differing opinion from the government. So why am I to argue with Merriam-Webster's definition of fascism? I'm not going to. So we have to look at what is fascism under that veil. And in that veil, there's a lot of evidence that it's not fascist. The burden of proof is on the accuser, not the accused. And he has done a poor job of proving that the Federation is fascist. If you've enjoyed this style of video where I break down an argument and give my 2 cents, please let me know in the comment section below. I'm not going to do this again until I get feedback. This will not change my typical plans. I'll be recording XCOM again tomorrow, Hearthstone Thursday, so on and so forth. I've been Rainbow, and this has been a very interesting video to do. And yes, I know this video is twice as long as the video it is responding to. I ran.